The Zebra BI charts visual can render many different types of charts. We have line charts, column charts, area charts, waterfall charts, combination charts, comparison charts with automatic variance calculations, and all of those chart types can be rendered as small multiples. So let me guide you through all of those chart types step by step. We'll start with the basic charts, namely simple column charts, line charts, area charts, and so on, that you can produce with one single measure and another data field that you place as categories on the x-axis. All right, so these are the most simple basic charts. I will demonstrate how you produce them. So let's take the example of a very basic column chart. You only need a measure and a data category. So let's start from the beginning. I will add a simple measure into the values placeholder. Okay, so this is now my total sales volume, for example, and I want to break it down by month. So I'll just take the month and put it into the category placeholder. That's it. So I've got a chart presenting my sales by month, and now you can use the chart slider to change the chart type. So from the column chart, switch to a simple line chart, then to the area chart and dot chart, and then the last one in the series is a waterfall chart that is quite special and very, very versatile, and I will get back to this example a little bit later. Now with the basic charts in the Zebra BI charts visual, you will see that you have a difference highlight automatically added to this chart. You can use this element to display the difference between 2 months, for example, last month to 1 month before, or you can change this in the difference highlight settings. So you can, for example, display the difference from the first to last element and so on. You will find that you have many design options to change the configuration of chart elements and also all the colors and other design options in the chart settings. All right, some of the charts also have additional layouts. Like for example, our area chart is by default displaying the comparison to the first data point, right? So the user can more easily understand if the value is going up or down, and if it's going up, you see the little green hill here. If it's going down, you see the red sea, right? That's why we call this chart also the hills and valleys chart. But this chart also has another setting here, which we call the layout, and you can change the layout from this integrated variance layout to the actual layout, which means that only the actual area of your sales or whatever you're presenting here will be colored. All right, so you will find that many different types of charts have several layouts, so make sure that with each chart type you also check the layout option in the chart settings. Okay, now the most important feature of the Zebra BI charts visual is that with all of those chart types, you can actually present multiple charts within one visual, and this is what we call the small multiples. And you can do that by simply taking another data field, like for example the group of business units, and you put it into the group placeholder. So just simply drag it inside, and now the same visual will just simply render all of my business units in one visual. All right, so these were the very basic charts. Now, where the Zebra BI visual, Zebra BI charts visual actually really stands out and provides additional value, especially compared to native Power BI charts, is that you can render comparisons within the same chart. So let me demonstrate how this works. We call those charts comparison charts. These are the charts where ZebraBI will actually calculate the differences, the variances between several measures, for example, between the actual sales and previous year's sales, or actual sales and plan, and or a forecast or something like that. So by using two measures, at least two measures, maybe three or even four measures, you will create the so-called comparison charts. And we have the waterfall chart, we have these so-called integrated variance charts, then the area chart that will actually display the variance between two areas. You can produce the line chart with multiple lines and so on. So there are many different ways how you can use the comparison charts in ZebraBI. So let's take a look at an example here. So this is a waterfall chart where I have used two measures. So I have used the actual sales and I did the comparison to the plan. All right, so let's try to recreate this. I will just throw out the plan. So back to my basic column chart, right? As now I have some actual sales here, and by bringing in another measure like a plan into the right placeholder, so I can do it like this. All right, this is my plan now, so I got the comparison to plan. You can use many different types of comparisons, like the basic one would probably be the comparison to previous year. So you do need a separate measure for that. So the previous year here is my separate measure, and you simply put it into the previous year placeholder. And what I've got now is a waterfall chart that is comparing my previous year's sales with my actual sales. So my previous year's sales was 8.1 million compared to 8.8 million this year. You already see here that this is 8.2% growth from previous year, and you can also see that in the waterfall chart all the variances for each month are automatically calculated by ZebraBI and displayed in this waterfall chart. If you don't like this waterfall chart, of course, again, you have several options. The next chart in this series is the variance chart. So this is a version of a column chart that now compares my sales versus previous year for each month and also calculates the variances, the absolute variance from previous year and also the relative growth rates from previous year, all in one visual, right? So this was the column chart. Then next option would be the area chart, which again shows the comparison to previous year's sales in my example here, or a simple line chart where you have two lines and then the difference highlight, as you can see here, will then present the most meaningful comparison between 2 points, like in my case here, the last actual point, data point compared to the corresponding previous year's value, right? All right, now these charts, the comparison charts, have more options. Let's take a look at the few of them. So you can break the axes in the waterfall chart or not. Next thing is the charts are responsive by default, which means that if you have a lot of space, like in my example here, you will get the chart with, you know, probably 2 or 3 charts. The variances are presented separately from the base measures, right? But if you make this visual smaller, if you make it more narrow, for example, if you don't have the space in your dashboard and so on, so just simply make it smaller, and what happens is the visual has responded because there's not enough space. The chart type actually changed and all my information is now presented in this very compact form that we call a variance chart or an integrated variance chart, because now all of my variances the previous year are integrated in the same type of chart. So this is the basic behavior of the ZebraBI visuals. They are all responsive by default, but again, as mentioned, you might check the option called the layout, where you can actually change this behavior from the responsive layout to, for example, just fixed integrated variance chart. Now, if you do this, now the layout is the integrated variance, and no matter what you do, you will always have this chart that you selected. And when you explore several options, you will see that there are lots of options here. You can display like the base values, like the actual sales and the previous year's sales at the bottom, and then a separate chart for the variances at the top. In this case, these are the absolute variances. You can also choose to display the base values at the bottom and then the relative variance at the top, and so on. So these are the basic options here. These are the most frequently used comparison charts with automatic variances. Again, with those types of charts, the small multiples functionality will work quite nicely actually. So any type of chart that you choose, again, if you take another data field, put it into the group placeholder, again, you will get the small multiples. So for example, in my case here, now I have all of my business groups presented in the same visual, and they have the comparisons, the growth rates for each and every business unit and for each and every data point presented in this visual. All right, moving on. This is not the end. We do have the combination charts. So sometimes you will have a situation where you want to show two measures, but not necessarily compare them directly because they are of a different type. A typical example would be presenting sales in millions of US dollars or euros or something like that, and then on top of that present like a gross margin, for example, in percentage in the same chart. So these are the typical combination charts where, like in my example on the top here, the column chart presents the sales, and then the little blue dots actually present the percentage, the gross margin percentage. How do you create this? Let me select this chart. As you can see now here, I'm using two measures, and I have put two measures into the values placeholder. All right. So if I just remove the second one, back to my basic column chart, right? So the only thing that you need is just take your measure and put it into the values placeholder as a secondary measure. And this secondary measure will be actually rendered on the secondary y-axis, all right? And you will see in the chart settings, when you create this combo chart, combination chart, you will find additional options here. For example, you can change the colors and font types and the label formatting and so on. And also this one is quite I would say important. This setting called the max height percent will actually control exactly where the values rendered on the secondary axis are displayed. So by default this is 100%, so all the values will be stretched across the whole visual, but sometimes in combination charts your values and labels will overlap. So this is the tricky part when using combination charts. That's why we have this setting. So for example, in my case, if I set this to 60%, you know, there's a better chance that all of my labels will be legible and not overlap with the labels in the column chart. Now the combination chart again works in small multiples and also works with any type of chart in the ZebraBI charts visual. So For example, if I use the same chart slider as before, my chart behind will change, so you've got the line chart, area chart, and so on, combined with the dots that are displayed on the secondary axis. Not only that, you can now also use the multiple comparisons. In my example, I have the actual values and then compared to previous year. So I have this waterfall chart behind, and then I have also added the gross margin on top of that, right? So the combination charts work with any kind of Zebra BI chart, no matter how complicated it is. You can always add the secondary measure in the values placeholder to create the combination chart. Okay, again, this is not the end. We have really great support for displaying the forecasts. This is very important in business reporting, in building business dashboards, financial dashboards, and so on. If you have forecasts in your data, then it is very, very important that you have great options to visualize those forecasts in charts, and this should be done within the same visual. So again, we have special support for that. Let me explain. This time I have again a combination of actually a comparison chart where I'm comparing my actual sales with my plan, for example. And this would be a typical situation in a monthly reporting where all of your actual values are valid up to the current month. So basically you have the plan for the whole year, but then you have your actual sales just up to the current month, right? And of course you will have the gap, what is going on, what is going to happen until the end of the year. So for the rest of the year you will typically have either empty data, or just displaying the plan to the end of the year. But once you have your forecast, you simply take your forecast and put it, all right, I should actually select my chart. So now take your forecast and put this measure into the forecast placeholder. So as you see, there's a dedicated placeholder for your forecasts, and once you add your forecast measure into this placeholder, the Zebra BI will render the so-called segmented chart. So your actuals will be rendered up to the last or current month, and then for the rest of the year the forecast will automatically be rendered by the Zebra BI visual. And again, this is not only possible in the column charts. This works with all of our chart types. So you can have area charts with forecasts, line charts with forecasts, waterfall chart with forecasts with all the features like axis break and so on, and it will always be clearly marked where is the transition between the forecasts and the actual values. And as you will see, the display of the forecast is also slightly different, so that the users can actually understand that this is a different type of data. In my case here, the columns are using the hatched pattern, which is the default recommendation of the IBCS standard, but you can also change this. In the design settings you will find that you can change a color, for example, so you can have blue actuals and yellow forecasts or something like that. But the hatch pattern typically works really well, and it's also a recommendation of the IBCS standard. So these charts again work with the small multiples. Again, if you bring the group placeholder here, display this, you will see that you can have all of those charts rendered at the same time in one visual. All right, so these were charts with the forecasts, segmented charts. Next option in charts, sometimes you will need the drill down functionality in your charts. These are maybe scenarios where you need more interactive you need to include more interactive features, either for storytelling purposes, or you simply want to enable the users to use more interactive features. A typical example would be drilling down from the year level through quarterly level to month level. How do you do that? So this chart right now has a breakdown by the month data field. So I only have one data field in my category, and this is rendered on my axis. Now, what happens if I add my quarters here and also maybe the year? Okay, so now I have three fields in my categories, right? So basically I have constructed a hierarchy on my axis, a hierarchy in my data categories. And the Zebra BI visual will detect this and will display the standard Power BI options for drill down. So typically now you can go from the year level by clicking the two parallel arrows here. By clicking this arrow, you will actually go to the next level in your hierarchy. So from year, I'm moving on to my quarters. One more click, I am down at my month. The next option is, let's go up, drill up. You actually drill down by expanding all of the values. So in this case, I will expand the year to my quarters and then once again expand, and now you see, now I have also the quarters and the month. And as you will find out in the axis, we try to optimally display all the labels so they don't repeat and so on. They are nice and clean and very legible, even if you're using hierarchical displays and the so-called drill down charts. One more way how people typically use the drill down options is that you actually turn on the drill down option, which means by clicking on this down arrow, now you have put your visual into the drill down mode, which means that when you select one element, okay, 1 year, now it's broken down by my quarters. And now again, I want to maybe see the result within the Q3. So my third quarter, click again, and now I only see the month that belong to the third quarter, right? So this is now the drill down into each and every data element that you have put in your category. Perfect. Almost at the end, another option in Zebra BI. So far we have seen all the charts with a horizontal axis, which is great for displaying time series like monthly, annual, quarterly, and so on data sets, right? But this is not necessarily always the case. Sometimes you actually need to turn your charts around and display the axis vertically from top to bottom. Let me demonstrate this. In the chart settings, you will find a setting called Show Vertical Charts. Okay, when you set this to on, the charts will turn around. Now you have again multiple types of charts that you can display. I would not recommend doing that for time series. Time series should run from left to right, so just keep the axis horizontal. But in another case, for example, if I now remove my month here and instead do a breakdown by product, my business unit groups, for example, I will put this into my category. All right, so now I have a comparison of my business units. And for this case, it's much better to display those business units in a chart with a vertical axis, right? This is much better because the labels will be legible, they will always be placed horizontally and so on. That's why we have this option of rendering the horizontal charts or charts with a vertical axis, right? And again, now you have several options here. You can use the bar charts with integrated variances. This is a really nice one. This is a vertical bridge chart, right? So again, you see I have my plan, I have my actuals, in between I have my business units, so I see which business units are actually contributing to the achievements of this plan, and I have the difference highlight here so understand what's the difference, and so on. And again, also these types of charts, they work as small multiples. So let me end this example by breaking this down further by, let's take quarters for example. That's kind of interesting. So I'll take my quarters, put it into the group placeholder, and this is how I constructed my small multiples. And this time these are charts with vertical x-axis in small multiples. So I have results for all my quarters, and within the quarters I have breakdown by business units and so on. So this was a quick run through the different types of charts that our Zebra BI tables visual can display, can render. Make sure that you read through all through the article for more tips and tricks and tips and tricks for several more ideas and examples, how to use those different types of charts in which situations and so on. And you will also find downloadable PBIX files to help you start exploring and using Zebra BI charts in the Zebra BI visuals.